Welcome, gather round the fireside and listen to a tale of Fionn McCool, Cullen, Deirdre of the Sorrows, Grainne Wail. From giants right down to fairies, of both the drooping and solitary, and those who are sometimes scary. Anything goes by the fireside. Yeah. Fireside, the Puka fireside, the Merrow fireside. Kings and queens fighting heroes, don't you run from the fun, there's no need to hide. Sit by the fireside. Fireside. Hello, and welcome to Fireside, the Irish storytelling podcast. Each episode of Fireside, we take a story from folklore, mythology, retell it, have a chat about the story itself and about the craft, culture, and history of storytelling. My name is Kevin C. O'Lahan, and I am your host and your Fireside Bard. It is episode 6. We have made it to as many episodes as a full Channel 4 series, which is no bad thing at all. It's always quality over quantity on quality British sitcoms and Irish in the case of Father Ted. I am very delighted we are coming to you, as always, from the beautiful Head Stuff Podcast Network studios here in Dublin. And if you've listened to the podcast before, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying it. If you're new to the podcast, you're very welcome. You can listen to this one, or you can go back to the beginning, get a background on the podcast, and start from the beginnings of Irish mythology and folklore. We're on part 3. This is episode 6, but it's part 3 of Irish mythology, and we're getting into the real meaty stuff now. We're going to be talking about the god Lugh, and there's the build throughout Irish mythology, but for me personally, when I was researching this carry on, this was really the jumping off point for me. This is where I got really hooked into the story of it all, and we're talking about probably my favourite character in early Irish mythology, certainly, and I hope that you'll see why very soon. I'm gonna get right. So this is the story. We're going to chat a bit more afterwards, of course, but here we go. This is The Coming of Lugh on Fireside. The Coming of Lugh. When the Tuatha Dé Danann first came to Ireland, they were ruled by Nuada. Then Nuada got his arm cut off at the first battle of Moytura. No one who was not perfect could rule the Tuatha Dé Danann, so Nuada was replaced with Bres. But Bres was a terrible king, who was no crack and put taxes on everyone. Then Nuada had his arm healed by Miach, son of Dian Cecht. So Bres was deposed and Nuada restored as king, and there was much rejoicing. But Bres had sworn revenge, and so went to the country of the Fomor, the enemies of the Tuatha Dé Danann, to find his lost father Elathan, and to raise an army against those who had deposed him. The Tuatha Dé Danann were delighted to have Nuada as their king once again, but there was a problem. Under the rule of Bres, the Fomor had imposed heavy taxation on the Tuatha Dé Danann, demanding 1/3 of all corn, milk, and children born in Ireland. Nuada was keen to reverse this, but the only way to do that would be to go to war, and Nuada was reluctant to put his people through that again. He was also worried he'd lose his recently healed arm again, or even be killed. The Tuatha Dé Danann were at this point still unaware of the actions of Bres. One night at Tara, Nuada threw a great feast to celebrate his re-coronation. A young man arrived at the gate and asked to be taken to see the king. The gatekeepers Gamal and Camal asked, "Why should we do that? Who are you to make such a request?" The man said, "I am Lugh, son of Cian of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and of Etna, daughter of Baelor of the Fomor. I'm also the foster son of Talcha, daughter of the king of the Great Plain, and of Echad the Rough." "Pull the other one," said Gamal. I've never even heard of half of them, said Camel. Neither have I, said Gamal. Maybe that's why we're on the door and not at the feast. I thought we were put on the door because everyone thinks it's gas that our names are so similar, said Camel. Oh yeah, said Gamal. I really wish my name wasn't Camel, said Camel. Lads, said Lugh, are you going to let me in? That remains to be seen, said Camel. What are you skilled in? No one without an art comes into Tara. I am a builder, said Lugh. We already have a builder, said Gamal. Then I'm a smith. Well, obviously we have one of those. I take it you have a champion, then. Of course. The king's brother, Ogma. How about a harper? We have one. Poet? Storyteller? We have one. I'm a physician, a magician, a healer, a cook. All covered positions. What about a cup-bearer? Now we've 9 of those. Then Lugh said, so you've a different person for each of those roles. But have you any one person who can do all of those? If you have, I'll leave Tara right now. The 2 gatekeepers went to the king, and Camel said, there's this lad at the door. He reckons he's an Ildánach, a master of all arts. He claims that all the things the people of the Tuatha Dé Danann can do, he can do all by himself. Nuda was, of course, intrigued. Bring this Ildánach to me. So Lugh was brought to Nuda. I believe you're a master of all arts. I am indeed, said Lugh. Well, said Nuda, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to prove it. So the king set a series of physical and mental challenges for Lugh, from games of chess to tests of physical strength. And every single time, Lugh defied all expectations. He played the harp, he sang, and he told stories. He could have everyone laughing at one line and crying at the next. And yes, he even served the king wine. At the end of this incredible display, Lugh was welcomed with open arms into the Tuatha Dé Danann. I have to ask, said Nuda, where did you come from? So Lugh told another tale, his own. When the Fomor lived in Ireland, their king Baelor of the Evil Eye lived on the island of the Tower of Glass. One day, one of his druids told him of a prophecy, that Baelor himself was to be slain by his own grandchild. Baelor had no grandchildren at this point, and only one child, his daughter Etna. So being the paranoid man that he was, Baelor had Etna locked in the tallest part of the Tower of Glass. There he put 12 women in charge of her, and told them not to let any man near her. Etna grew up to be a beautiful woman, but not once did she ever meet a man. She never even met her father, as Baelor refused to visit her. He was too busy causing death and destruction all over Ireland. Sometimes Etna would look out the window of her tower and see the blur of male guards and soldiers in the distance. And some nights she would dream of the face of a man. But whenever she questioned her 12 guardians, they refused to answer her. As it happened, around this time, there were 3 of your own brothers of the Tuatha Dé Danann living close by on Drum na Tina, the Ridge of the Fire. There was Govnu, Samhain, and Cian. Cian was the eldest brother and the lord of the land. He loved his brothers, but the dearest thing in the world to Cian was his beloved pet cow, the Glass Goblin. The Glass Goblin was a magical white cow with green spots whose milk never ran dry. She and Cian travelled the length and breadth of the country together, having adventures and drinking milk. Baelor knew of this cow and sought it for himself. And he finally got his chance when one day Samhain brought some steel to Govnu and Cian and asked them to craft weapons for him. Cian asked in return that Samhain would take the Glass Goblin for a walk, which Samhain was happy to oblige. But Baelor was listening nearby and saw his opportunity. He knew he could never outsmart Cian, but Samhain was not quite as bright. So Baelor disguised himself as a little boy and ran after Samhain and the cow. He called out, "Sir, you must hurry. I overheard your brothers say that they're going to use all of your steel to make swords for themselves and not you." "Is that so?" said an outraged Samhain. "Well, we'll see about that. Boy, would you mind holding on to the cow for just a few minutes so that I can go back and catch my brothers in the act?" "Oh, of course, sir," said the disguised Baelor. No sooner had Samhain ran off that Baelor grabbed the glass goblin and took it back to the island of the Tower of Glass. Cian was devastated when he realised what had happened. He chastised Samhain for his stupidity and vowed he would not rest until he got his cow back from Baelor. He went to his druid friend, Birog of the Mountain, who said she would help him infiltrate the Tower of Glass. She dressed Cian in women's clothes, and they sailed to the island and knocked on the door of the tower. One of Etna's 12 guardians came to the door, and Birog said, "I am Birog of the Mountain, and I've just rescued a queen of the Tuatha Dé Danann from drowning. May we come in and rest for the night?" The guard didn't like to refuse someone in need, especially if they were of the Tuatha Dé Danann. So she let Birog and Cian into the tower. Once inside, Birog put an enchantment on all 12 guardians and let Cian explore the tower looking for the glass goblin. He didn't find his cow, but what he did find at the very top of the tower was Etna. He was overwhelmed by her beauty. She was initially frightened, having not seen a man up close since the earliest years of her life. But that fear faded away once she realised that Cian was the man whose face she had dreamt of. She told him that, and they gave each other their love there and then. But Cian couldn't stay. He wanted to take Etna with him, but Baelor had placed powerful enchantments over the tower to stop her leaving that not even Birog could undo. Needless to say, 9 months later, Etna gave birth to a son. Me. Of course, when Baelor found out, he had me ripped from my mother's arms, wrapped up and thrown into the sea. But the reason I'm standing in front of you today is that Birog never stopped watching out for me since the day my parents met. She rescued me from drowning and had me brought to my father, Cian. I had a sword put in my hand from the time I could grip. And today, I am known as Lugh Lámh Fhada, Lugh of the Long Hand. For no man I swing at escapes me. I've been trained my entire life for the moment I would have to kill my own grandfather, something that was foretold long before I was even born. And today I come to you, the people of my father, to ask you to join me in my fight against the Fomor. You need not be so heavily taxed by those horrid giants anymore. Join me and you will be free from them. The only thing I ask is that you leave Baelor to me." After Lugh finished speaking, there was a silence. Nuda thought hard before speaking. He did not want to go to war, but with this Ildánach, he felt certain of victory, and that his people would be free of the taxation of the Fomor. Nuda stood up from his throne. "For your mother and your father and all of my people, we will join you, Lugh Lámh Fhada." "But what about the cow?" said Camel. "Yeah, what happened to the glass goblin?" said Camel. "Oh yeah, she's still in the custody of Baelor," said Lugh. "We have to get her back as well." "To war!" said Camel. "For the cow!" said Camel. And so, Lugh and the Tuatha Dé Danann prepared for war. To be continued. And there we have it. There is the story of the coming of Lugh. I hope you enjoyed it. It's quite an introduction. Straight away once I was reading this for the first time, just that is a character introduction on of just this young stranger coming to the gates claiming he can do absolutely everything is wonderful. It really is. So Lugh obviously has all this heritage. He's involved with everybody. Everybody's either his parent or his grandfather, and he will go on to father Cuchulainn, which is I suppose where it gets particularly interesting, because those familiar at all with Cuchulainn will no doubt see similarities with Lugh, in that Cuchulainn's very much considered the Hercules of Irish mythology, in for many reasons, mostly because he is half mortal, half god. He's super strong, but Lugh in many ways is more so like it, and like Hercules, and so it's no surprise at all that those two stories were connected to make them family. So yeah, there's two great battles of Moytura. So it's Maghtui or Eadh, as far as I know. So I've been pronouncing it Mochtura, but I've seen a few anglicised phonetic spellings of it that have been pronouncing it Moytura. So that's what I'm going to go with for the moment, until I'm contradicted or until I see one that works better. So to acknowledge those will happen. I will retcon my pronunciations where necessary. We'll get to the second great battle of Moytura in a couple of weeks, but Lugh has a sword called Fragarach, the Answerer, and this sword is passed down throughout mythology, which is one of it. He got it off Manon MacLear, I believe, is who gives it to Lugh, and Lugh passes it down, and eventually Cuchulainn wields this sword. So it's this one thing that goes throughout. It almost is a thing that ties all of the Irish mythology together, is this sword, which I love so much. So let's go back to the start of the story, chat about it a bit. So yeah, we have Nuada reinstated as king, but unaware that Brez has now gone off to meet the Fomor and to raise his army. Nuada is obviously delighted to become king again and has this great party. But yeah, the kingdom is very much still in ruins from the heavy taxation that the Fomor have placed on, that Brez only made worse. So I like that things aren't just all well once again, just because Nuada has very much been handed back a sinking ship, and it's the perfect time for the entrance of Lugh. So these gatekeepers, in Lady Gregory's Complete Mythology, which is the main source I'm working off for the myths, it's written very much almost like a Bible, almost like a history, which is interesting in its own way, but it means that everyone is named, and who their son is, who their father is. It's done very like that, which gets very hard to read at some stages. And for the most part, not for the most part, but where necessary, I'm not listing every name mentioned, because I just think it does slow it down. But I had to make an exception for Gamal and Camal, because just happens to mention that there's two gatekeepers and that their names are Gamal and Camal. As far as I know, I may be wrong, but as far as I know, I don't think they appear again. But I loved their names so much that I had to make them characters, central characters to this story. I just kind of fell in love with them. And then so Lugh's background. Yeah, there's something very Oedipal about Lugh's backstories, that he's prophesied, is that the word, to murder his own grandfather, Baelor of the Evil Eye. Baelor, who we haven't met yet properly. The last place we left Brez, he went over to the country of the Fomor to find his father, Elathan. He asked his father to help him bring an army, at which point Elathan said no, because you lost your kingdom, we're not going to help you take it back. So Elathan takes takes Bres to see Baelor, the king of kings of the Fomor. Baelor of the evil eye, which is so called because he has one evil eye that if you look into it, you will die. So Baelor has this cool Medusa thing going on, which is class. And obviously he is very much the baddie of this piece. There's so many tropes though, that so many classic fairy tale tropes in the locking the daughter in the tower for her to be liberated. And then you've got the amazing curveball of having the subplot of the cow. We have to talk about the cow. The glass gavelin. The original spelling seems to be GLASGAIBHNENN, so like glass gavelin, but there's a few pronunciations that says gavelin, and off alternate spellings and phonetic pronunciations say gavelin. So that's easier to say than gavelin. So that's what I'm going to go with for the moment. But this cow appears in folktales, and he's not always owned, or she's not always owned by Cian. So I'm definitely going to tell one of the folktales about her, possibly next episode, next folktale, because I have a slight association with this cow, in that a few months ago, myself and my girlfriend were looking to go on a weekend away, and so we were looking on Airbnb, and we were looking to go somewhere out west, particularly. So we thought maybe the Burren, and then out of nowhere, my girlfriend sends me this link to this like vintage converted caravan, basically, that is in the back of someone's just house, just on their grounds, but it was known as the Fairy Cow. That was the name of it, and it was spelled fairy, FAEI or IE, being the old Irish spelling of it. So you know you're onto a winner when it's that. But we fell in love with this. So basically it was like, I think it was an old German, like an old 60s German mobile home, that this husband and wife who live in the Burren, they converted, and it was absolutely beautiful. They gutted it on the inside and did it up. But what was so special about it is that the hill that it was on, is the hill that this cow, the glass goblin, was supposed to have lived on, which was my first introduction to her and made us go, absolutely, we have to go there. We went there, and it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was like right beside. It was like 8 minutes away from the Father Ted house, so I got to live out all my Father Ted fantasies. That was the majority of our Burn trip, was us going on walks on this hill and then trying to visit the various Father Ted locations. So we went to the caves, which amazingly, so those, I've seen the caves episode of Father Ted. There's the sign when they go to the caves that says, the really dark caves, it's almost like being blind. And that sign is still there. It's still outside the Alwee caves, in the Burn. It's really massive, and the greatest thing about it is there is no context given to it. There's no like, this is from Father Ted, and this is a really massively popular tourist destination, and I love the idea of these hundreds and thousands of American tourists passing through there every year, only to see the really dark caves. It's almost like being blind, and just to think, silly Irish people. I love it so much. But yeah, so we had a great time. But this cow, the glass goblin, goblin was more associated with lawn this character named Lon, who was the smith. So Governor is another smith. There's a few smiths. There's a few of everything. And it was Lon who travels around with the cow. I need to do a bit more research, like, because I will do another story about her, about the Glasgoblin, to find out is Lon another name for Cian, because Lon seems to be, he is the smith for the Fianna. He is the one who makes the weapons for Fionn McCool and his warriors. So this cow isn't done yet. This cow pops up quite a bit. But in the context of this story, there's definitely always going to be the monomythologist Joseph Campbell, who I'm sure will get mentioned quite a bit. He wrote this book called the Hero of a Thousand Faces, I think it's called. And it's basically just about how all stories are one story. So from the story of like Jesus Christ, The Matrix, I don't know, The Lion King, absolutely everything is one story. It's the hero's journey. So, of course, there's going to be a lot in Irish mythology that translates with other mythologies and that is familiar in terms of tropes. But then there is just some stuff that is unlike anything else, I found. And the cow, the fairy cow, is definitely one such of those. Because you've got a great story here of this prophecy, this evil king is going to be overthrown by his grandson, locks his daughter in the tower. These are all familiar things. The hero is nearby. He has to liberate the princess from the tower. But oh no, he doesn't even know about the princess. He just has a beloved pet cow, and his cow is kidnapped. And in an attempt to rescue the cow, ends up finding the love of his life. And how unique and how wonderful is that? I think so anyway. But because obviously in the Lady Gregory version, for the purposes of what the story isn't, that the story is the birth of Lugh, the cow is just forgotten about. She's not mentioned again. We don't know. It does say one druid does tell Cian that so long as Baelor lives, he'll never get his cow back. So that's why I threw back in there with Gamal and Camel, asking, well, like, you seem to be telling one story and then you told another, and then what happened to the cow? So we'll see what happens when we get to the second battle of Moytura, but I hope that we will see the cow. We will see the cow again. We know the cow survives anyway to have past ownership, and we'll see if I can find a connection of how Lon ended up with the cow. So not all is lost for the Glasgoblin. Speaking of glass, actually, the Tower of Glass is something that was very intriguing to me. I don't know where this island is supposed to be. I assume off the west coast, because that's where all the islands are. But it's an incredible image, isn't it? It's just Baelor living in this tower of glass and imprisoning his daughter in this tower. It seems to be, from what I've seen, it seems to be a Lady Gregory invention. And I saw a line where it said, like, it's probably inspired by some French lad, Marie-Henri Darbois de Jubanville. Apologise to any French speakers if that was awful. He's a French historian and philologist, whatever that is. But he was very interested in Celtic languages, and was obviously a friend of Lady Gregory. But I don't know why he inspired the Tower of Glass. I must find that out. But it is this incredible image to have off the coast of Ireland. There's a running theme, certainly in Irish and probably all mythologies. I'm developing where I'm calling it the bat out of hell theme. So like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone when the morning comes. There's just quite a bit of lads running away, of lads laying with a woman and then disappearing forever. So last time we saw it, with Brez never knew who his father was, and then his mother told that his father was one of the Fomor, and that he sailed into Ireland one day, and they fell in love, and they lay with each other, and then he just left. And there's no context given to it. Like I said, that it was maybe because he was one of the Fomor, so he wasn't going to be welcomed by the Tuatha Dé Danann. He didn't want to bring his love back to the land of the Fomor because he was ashamed, because they were traditionally an ugly, brutish race, and he was quite beautiful. But there's no context given in the versions that I've been reading, and we have that again here with what's his face, with Cian and with Etna, in that it just said, they gave each other their love and they were meant to be, but it says what, he was carried away on the wind, I think is how they phrase it. It's just he just buggered off. So I could rationalise that a little bit better. Is that, okay, well, they were like, obviously he was always going to have to leave, and maybe he tried to take Etna with him and then couldn't because she was being magically kept in the tower. That worked for me. But considering there is, relatively speaking, there is a great feminism to Irish mythology, in that we've got a huge amount of warrior women, of powerful queens and female druids. But of course, those traditional tropey, not helpfully sexist things do pop up, of just lads fecking off on the girls. Just in case anyone is familiar with this, Etna's name seems to be Ethlyn in anglicised versions, which was the name I was going with for ages, and then I just found one that said she's Etna in an old Irish version, and I prefer that because I don't know any Ethlyns for a start, but I have a cousin named Etna, and I like Etna as it's one of those very strong Irish, very Irish names. But I think that's fairly it. Yeah, I think that wraps us up nice and nicely. I really hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, I'd love to hear your feedback. You can follow me on Twitter at OlaHanSolo, OLOHANSOLO, or on Instagram at OlaHanSolo, all one word again. So thanks, as always, to Head Stuff Podcast Network. It's a joy. It is an utter joy being with these guys and getting to come into the studio every week. And I hope we can do it for a good while to come. Okay, I'll stop my rambling and leave it there. But I will see you all next week on the fireside. I will see you all next week by the fireside. All right, goodbye.
This podcast is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network.